welcome to another Down the Rabbit Hole video where we are clearly talking about No Man's Sky. I have to say, this game is incredible. And with it, I'm kind of concerned, but I don't think I really need to get any more PSVR games. I really like it that much. I'm finding I'm only playing No Man's Sky. Nothing else.
Toxic protection falling.
This is footage of the beginning of my very first game, my first load, if you will, of my first planet. And this game is just incredible. It's essentially, it's my childhood dream come true. And I'm going to take a little bit of time here and just discuss why this game is so good, why it means a lot to me, and just share some of the fantastic imagery that I've encountered in the relatively short few months that I've actually been playing this game. Now, don't worry, I definitely have other PSVR games on the horizon that I'm interested in getting, despite the fact that I'm really just playing this, No Man's Sky, all the time. Without a doubt, there is one particular title coming in the new year that is going to be really interesting, but I gotta get it, absolutely. And there's another game as well that, hey, it's the namesake of my channel. Of course I've got to play it. But I will say, outside of those, there have been other games that have been announced or been reviewed very favorably, and I've got a bunch of games in my back catalog, but all I ever find I'm doing is playing No Man's Sky. For those who are questioning why I find this so great and are looking at this footage and thinking, well, it looks a bit junky and janky, and I don't know why you think it's so awesome. If you don't know No Man's Sky, you start off on an alien planet. You have to dig out some resources using your new toolbox and eventually find a derelict spacecraft that had crashed with you that you repair, and then you take off. And the thing for me is, this is kind of my childhood dream come true. Like, being a kid of the era that I grew up in, we would see on television various adventures of science fiction that were essentially that idea. Your ship was on a planet, you go and you engage with aliens, or you take on bad guys, or you have spaceship combat, all of those things. A very rudimentary Star Wars experience. And this game really makes that come to life in a way that surprises me. And I want to play it. It's so encompassing. It's overtaken all of my gaming in VR. I'm kind of composing a bit of a love letter to No Man's Sky because it's awesome. Okay, eventually you have repaired your ship and you take off and go and see new planets. And there are millions of them. I mean, the very premise behind No Man's Sky is it is this procedurally generated universe. Every planet you journey to is unique and different and vastly changeable as far as the weather, the landscape, the creatures, everything. And it has this an element that is hard to describe, where you can get out, you can fly over any landmass, you can sit down, and you can interact with the plants and animals all around you, and other things that I'll show later. And you can just hop back on your ship and fly somewhere else. and the universe is completely open. Amazingly as well, the footage you're watching, it may not look fantastic, but you got to remember, first of all, this is PlayStation VR, so as a VR experience, it's a lower resolution than maybe what you would get on Vive or Oculus. In addition, I don't have a PlayStation Pro. This is on an original slim PS4, but it looks good enough for me, and the feeling that is translated through these somewhat grainy, somewhat fuzzy graphics is a feeling of walk anywhere, do anything, go to any corner of this incredible universe and do whatever you like. And each one is a unique place with amazing depth and experiences that I have not had in any other game. Something else I really like about No Man's Sky is the chill nature of the game. It's just very relaxing. You're kind of in a low, almost no pressure way invited to explore and go and do things. There are consequences. If you fail at things, you can die, but they're not the end of the game. There's so much more you can do. It's really well done, and I really like that about this game. I feel like I could just be lost in this universe for hours and hours. In fact, I have. There have been a few Sunday afternoons where I've pulled up the headset and gone, oh, it's like 9 o'clock at night. Where did the day go? It has that free-flowing, very open nature. I love it. I've actually wanted No Man's Sky ever since it was first announced, and when it launched, I was very tempted to pull the trigger before it ever became a VR game. Back when it was just for the PlayStation 4 on a flat screen, the promise that the developers had given out. Hello Games have got a lot of bad rap over the years for promising very high, lofty things, and at first not delivering at all. Just check some of those old reviews. That's kind of what kept me from jumping on board. I just thought, oh, well, this sounded like the game of my dreams, but then I saw things like a tweet where giant stacks of the games have been sitting on store shelves, and it was jokingly referred to as No Man Buys. That's actually turned out to be a benefit for me, because when eventually it was announced for PSVR, I just thought, oh, hey, I wonder if any of those old discs are still sitting on store shelves. And yes, lo and behold, they were. So I got my copy for $15, as well as a copy for a friend of mine, worth every single penny. In fact, I would argue, given how much I play this and how much I love this, I would have paid full retail. I think it goes 60 odd bucks on the PlayStation Store. I would have bought it if I could now tell myself back in time it's worth it. It took a while for them to get there. It took many years of adjusting and correcting, but No Man's Sky today, totally worth it. Now, I'm not going to do any spoilers in here, but there is actually a pretty compelling story if you do the single-player version of the game. I haven't even dabbled in the other. There's like a survival mode and a open sandbox mode. I haven't even touched any of those yet. I've just been playing the standard normal campaign, and it's really good. Like, you're going places and investigating things, and it's got a lot of intrigue. The thing I really like the most about the story, again, no spoilers, is that I reached a point with it where I've kind of got a good intuitive moral compass for what game developers are kind of guiding you toward. You know, here's the very obvious good answer, here's the very obvious evil answer. You have choices. But with No Man's Sky, certainly the part of the adventure I'm currently dealing with the consequences of, there is no clear cut, you want it to go this direction, you want it to go that direction. It's unique and has kind of this intrigue to it. I made a choice that I was surprised led to something not appearing anymore, and I thought, that doesn't seem like the happy ending that we should have got, and the story is still going on now. So the story level And the kind of, it's not immediately obvious which is the right or wrong answer. That's really cool. I really like the story of No Man's Sky as well. I heard some people describe No Man's Sky as sort of a crafting game, which I know has a following. Not only things like Minecraft, but you've also got those Don't Starve, I think it is, or, you know, various games where you are alone on an island and you have to find a way to survive, and then you have to build up a shelter, and then you have to defend yourself against the various creatures that are in the universe. And that is in No Man's Sky, but in a way that it's enjoyable. It kind of harkens back, as I said early on, the sort of laid back, chill nature of the game. There's a crafting element without necessarily being an action or adventure element. And I'm not a Minecraft guy, but I really took to that in this game. I like building, collecting resources, building up things, and inventing new technology and upgrading stuff. And I'm not normally that type of player, but in this case, it's done really well, and in a way that I keep going back to the well and doing more upgrading and more crafting. Love it. But one thing that is kind of cool in No Man's Sky is you have the ability to actually build your own base. You can add rooms to it, put walls, all kinds of equipment and machinery can be installed in this base. That's pretty cool. I mean, it's not for me. I've actually got a workaround which I'm going to describe in a second, but for those people who kind of like decorating their own home in a game or what have you, you can build very elaborate bases on the planets that have got good functionality, good reason to exist as well. You get resources that are typically a lot harder to find. You can actually grow or harvest or what have you your own stuff in these bases. That's really neat. That's a nice feature that, at least for some people, there's an audience for that. I'll tell you my favorite thing I like to do in No Man's Sky, and it sort of harks to something I almost wanted to do as a kid, is what I kind of call space trucking. And that's where I can get from where I am currently to my destination much faster if I want. But I kind of just like putting the ship into, you know, standard throttle and just sitting back and watching the landscape go by. Kind of like I'm a truck driver, you know, slowly making my way across the prairies or what have you. In this case, I'm getting to my destination, but I just kind of like sitting back and looking out the window and just watching the landscape roll underneath me. I'm in no rush. I could just chill and, you know, get to the journey is part of the actual trip, not just the destination. I've kind of been tempted, if they ever make Euro Truck Simulator or American Truck Simulator in VR, that would be a bad combo for me, because I think I would just spend all my time in the cab of my truck just watching the world roll by. And in No Man's Sky, I'm doing that, but a sci-fi version. There's also an interesting economy in the game of No Man's Sky where you are kind of doing this convoy work, or you're flying around doing things, because you can go up to the space stations. Up there are a whole bunch of things to do, both interesting and uniquely designed aliens to interact with, learn the language, find clues for things to do with the story, or you can just go ahead, do a few missions. There's all kinds of different things that are possible. You can trade various resources that you have found, get a profit off those, or if you need something for your ship, you can buy them in the terminals. You can pick up missions, as mentioned, where you can go and do all kinds of interesting activities, like even delivery missions and things, which take you to planets you wouldn't have necessarily visited, but that's a very cool little extra thing that the game provides. On occasion, when you're on a planet, there will be these storms that roll through. Sometimes it's a winter blizzard, or sometimes it's a heat sandstorm almost, but the temperature goes really high, or radiation. There are times when it's wise to just wait in your ship until this whole thing blows over. It takes a couple minutes of real time to wait for this to happen. And I was on this one planet where I had just landed near a lake. I needed to go into the lake to find the next item on my quest. This storm had rolled in, and I thought, right, I'm just going to wait it out, like I have several times. And by bad timing, it was getting dark, and I thought, I'm not going to be going around in the water in the dark. I'm thinking I'm maybe going to leave it here, finish my game, do something else, come back later. And then I stopped, because just as the storm blew away, there was a sunset. And I just took a moment of like, I'm sitting here in my cockpit of my spaceship, watching a sunset on an alien planet. And I don't know of any other games where I've ever done that. There's this real life element, or this simulated, I don't really have a good way to describe it, this simulated life that you will do things in No Man's Sky that you just don't normally think of doing in other games. I like that. There are also several times in the story where you need to call upon the Space Anomaly, which is this interdimensional space base thing. Looks like a Death Star in a way. A giant metal orb that can suddenly warp in, and you can land on board that anomaly and take care of various business, both for the story and for upgrading your ship or yourself in ways that the other space stations do not have available. This is clearly where one of the multiplayer elements exists, because one of the first times I came aboard the anomaly, I was noticing, hey, there's a lot of interesting looking ships around here, and people that had names floating over their heads that I thought, that's a real person. There's no way the developers have named this thing. I think one ship I walked past was the USS What's Up? So I was like, okay, yeah, we're dealing with real gamers now. It was kind of funny and kind of cute. In addition, though, check out the ship that I encountered on this one visit. In addition, as I mentioned earlier, how there are creatures that can be antagonists for you in your adventures, there's bad guy spaceships. You can encounter pirates or people with bounties or whatever, and you can actually engage in ship-to-ship combat, and it's really good. I've actually tried a few PSVR flying shoot-'em-up space games like E-Valkyrie, for example, and Everspace, I think it is. And I found them to be a little too ping-pong ball experiences. I felt like I was just bouncing around off the environment in space. Didn't like it, actually. Totally loved the Star Wars Battlefront, the X-Wing missions. Those are still the pinnacle of space combat. But I think what they've done in No Man's Sky is really well done. If you can manage with Move controllers to do the joystick properly, it's very compelling. I really enjoy doing this spaceship combat in No Man's Sky. Now, whereas I may not be terribly interested in building the base on the surface of the planet and customizing it and making it my own home, what No Man's Sky also provides, and this has got my heart in all the right places, is the ability to actually have a similar idea, but on a freighter. You can have a fleet of ships. I am walking around here on board my capital ship, where I can administer missions for my crew. We can go into hyperspace. I've got crew quarters, I've got storage units, I've got all kinds of things that are going on my freighter. And you can launch missions, as mentioned. You can go and do a bunch of things. You may recall when I was doing one of my virtual video responses to Swifto, where he had asked what real world or what fictional world from a video game would you want to have lived in real life if possible. For my answer, I had said the Tiger's Claw from the Wing Commander games, because that's sort of been my childhood dream, which again, No Man's Sky is delivering on many levels. I can do that in this game. I can have a freighter, a battleship kind of thing, and I can lead my ragtag fugitive fleet on a lonely quest. It's here. In addition to that, something else that's super awesome. I tried launching my other ships to go off and discover things on my behalf and bring back resources or money or whatever. And I was informed, well, one of the ships is in pretty bad shape, so it can't go on that mission until it gets repaired. And that's when I discovered I can get onto my ship, I can fly from the capital vessel over to the freighter that's in trouble, land there, and conduct repairs. And it was just this whole world opened up to me. Like, what? I get to do essentially spaceship maintenance, which in itself sounds pretty dull, but again, it's that Minecraft kind of upgradey, learning new resources, new techniques, and investing in technology thing that this game does so well. I never thought I would enjoy going over and being kind of the maintenance crew on board a freighter, but it just makes the game that much deeper and more enjoyable for me. I love it. I've kind of got my childhood wish of being on board the Tiger's Claw. I'll also totally give my hats off to Hello Games and Sean Murray and the rest of them. They are still updating this game even now. VR came out in the summertime, and they just did an update for a variety of little things. There's always a giant list of what the hotfixes are. Sometimes it's very important certain weapons weren't working, or you couldn't take photographs until just recently in the VR mode. But another thing is they've actually tweaked the graphics still. I mean, it looked great when I was taking this original footage here. This is from earlier on in my campaign. But they've also just recently done a further update to the graphics, so it looks even nicer. I mean, it's a more blended look, and it runs a little smoother. So it's still being supported in very important ways to this day, which really impresses me. Hats off to Hello Games once again. I'm going to tell you my Sentinel story, which is one that I've told others, and it's a good indicator of how organically the game can create storyline just within the context of this procedurally generated universe. I was on a planet, I don't have footage of it. I was on a planet, and I was quite a distance away from my ship again, and I found a thing buried in the ground that I thought, ooh, this might be valuable. Started digging away, it had security locks on it, blew those off, and suddenly a Sentinel was right up there in my face in this pit with me, starting to attack me, and I thought, oh shoot, I gotta run back to where my ship is, and it was quite a long way away. It was going to take me a while to get to my ship. And this thing was right behind me, shooting me with lasers. And I looked behind just to see, is there two of them? Because sometimes as you take longer to get away from them or what have you, they get support units. They get other Sentinels with them. It was still just him, but in turning around, I didn't see where I was going, and I actually fell into a cave, a little, an embankment down in a little cavernous area. It was small enough that I could fall through, but the Sentinel, I mean, these aren't big creatures. They look big in this picture, but they're not, you know, they may be the size of a, I don't know, a suitcase. This thing decided not to follow me inside the cave. It sat there looking and scanning in the mouth of the cave all the time. And I thought, right, at least I'm going to survive this part, but my ship is on the other side of this cave wall. What am I going to do? And I thought, well, wait a minute, my multi-tool has the ability to do some burrowing, some digging through. I can melt the rock, so to speak. So I walked down further to get away from the Sentinel. There were some little Venus flytrap things sort of attacking me, minorly so I shot them. I got to a good distance down, and then I started melting the rock using the terrain modifier, started digging a tunnel back out the opposite direction toward my ship, and I emerged into the sunlight, and the Sentinel was nowhere to be seen, and I made my way back to my ship, and everything was hunky-dory. But I just thought to myself, there's a moment that almost seemed it could have been scripted. That's like something from a story of, you know, somebody stuck on an alien planet and he's got to get back to his ship and there's this robot after him. But this just happened within the context of the game. And I really like that. That's one of many stories I've encountered that have just happened. I wanted to just show off a couple more examples of the incredible worlds that were just randomly generated for me. This is toward the end of the game. You'll notice the interior of my spaceship is souped up a little more. This game just, it goes on with amazing things that can be seen and experienced. This first world, my mind was blown when I first landed here, and I was like, wow, this has taken almost a weird Alice in Wonderland approach to the alien world concept, and just love this one. This was one example of kind of the really cool things that you can experience as you delve into any alien planet. And another very alien planet, one that kind of knocked my socks off when I came through the clouds. This was just somewhere I had happened upon and didn't think too much of it until I actually descended through the clouds. And this was the moment where I just went, whoa. This is the kind of thing that is a surprise, a delight, unexpected joy, little treasure-like gifts that No Man's Sky has been delivering to me across endless worlds as I continue with my fleet of ships doing this very intriguing, different, compelling storyline, and it just goes on forever. I think they say the game can be played forever, and I'm a little worried that I'm probably just going to keep playing it forever because I love it that much. It is everything I ever wanted in my childhood made real, and I cannot sing its praises enough. So this has just been a little love letter to my new all-time favorite PSVR game, and one that probably means I'm not going to be playing too much else. Though admittedly there is that other game that I mentioned at the beginning of this video, and I'm totally going to be buying that. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this little love letter I have composed toward No Man's Sky, because this has been a precedent-setting game for me. And until next time we meet out there in the universe, we'll see you down the rabbit hole.